Welcome to Daily Devotions. My name is Raymond Gregory, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about the class struggle and should it have any part in the church. Now, whenever I think of class struggle, I don't know about you, but I think back to that classic movie, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I think of Charlie in his home with his grandparents laying in a bed in basically the middle of their kitchen, and then his mom's making cabbage stew because they have absolutely no money. But his grandfather gives him a little bit of money to go and get a chocolate bar because he wants to find that golden ticket and go and tour that amazing chocolate factory where he has a chance to win a lifetime supply of chocolate. And so he goes and ultimately he gets his golden ticket. But then I also think of Veruca Salt, whose dad is super affluent. And so he buys up all the chocolate bars in the area, hires an assembly line of people to go through them all to find that golden ticket, and she gets a golden ticket. But the thing I love about the fact that they both get the golden ticket is that the playing field, once they get the ticket, is completely leveled out. Their chances of winning that lifetime supply of chocolate is the same. And so that's kind of how it is with the gospel. Once we receive Christ in the church, the playing field as far as the classes go is leveled. Well, in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, Paul is addressing this because he's not happy with the way class struggle is entering the church. And so we're going to talk about that as we read in 1 Corinthians chapter 11 with a devo I've titled Paul and the Chocolate Factory. So again, we'll be in 1 Corinthians chapter 11 with a devo title, Paul and the Chocolate Factory. It's all going to make sense in just a moment, hopefully. So let's start reading in verse 17 of 1 Corinthians chapter 11, New Living Translation. But in the following instructions, I cannot praise you, for it sounds as if more harm than good is done when you meet together. Sounds like he's talking to my kids. But in following instructions, I cannot praise you, for it sounds like more harm than good is done when you meet together. First, I hear that there are divisions among you when you meet as a church. And to some extent, I believe it. But, of course, there must be divisions among you, so you who have God's approval will be recognized. Okay, so we've heard about divisions in the church in Corinth before in chapter 1. Well, this is a different kind of division. So he was outlining, divisions in the church. I'm of Paul, I'm of Apollos, almost doctrinal divisions in chapter 1. But in this chapter 11, he's talking about class divisions. So it's a rich and poor situation. And so in a sense, the gospel was their golden ticket. They got the golden ticket. They get to go and tour the chocolate factory. But for many, their conduct was disqualifying them. I don't know if you remember that each of the people who got a golden ticket back in the Willy Wonka movie, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, each of them represented a different kind of sin. And so Augustus Gloop was the glutton, right? Violet Beauregard was pride, and then Veruca Salt was obviously greed. Charlie was envy, the sin of envy, and then Mike TV was the sloth, and then Wonka represented anger, and then the golden ticket represented lust. Well, so in the same way, they all get their golden ticket by receiving Christ. They get to come to the table. They get to come to the chocolate factory. But the way they're acting against each other in this class struggle, it's now disqualifying. That's why when Paul says, but of course there must be divisions among you so that you who have God's approval will be recognized. There are some people who don't have God's approval because of the way they're acting. And so I picture Paul being like Willy Wonka from this scene.
The lifetime supply of chocolate for Charlie. When does he get it?
He doesn't.
Why not?
Because he broke the rules.
What rules? We didn't see any rules, did we, Charlie?
Wrong, sir. Wrong.
Under Section 37B of the contract signed by him, it states quite clearly that all offers shall become null and void if, and you can read it for yourself in this photostatic copy, I, the undersigned, shall forfeit all rights, privileges, and licenses herein and herein contained, etc., etc. Fax mentis incendium gloria culpum, etc., etc. Memo bis punitor delicatum. It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You stole fizzy lifting drinks. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Man, that guy's such a good actor. So much better than Johnny Depp. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Johnny Depp and everything, but that movie is so far superior to the remake with Johnny Depp. But anyway, so I just picture Paul coming at him and just being like, there are divisions among you. You are disqualified, and God, is approving of some of you and not of others of you. And so as we read in chapter 20, just picture Gene Wilder just yelling at the top of his lungs. And so Paul will be played by Gene Wilder. So when you meet together, you are not really interested in the Lord's Supper. For some of you hurry and eat your own meal without sharing with others. As a result, some go hungry while others get drunk. What? Don't you have your own homes for eating and drinking? Or do you really want to disgrace God's church and shame the poor? What am I supposed to say? Do you want me to praise you? Well, I will certainly not praise you for this. So again, here's Paul.
So you get nothing. You lose.
Right? I mean, he's really handing it to him right here, because they're coming together as a church to celebrate, but also remember Christ's sacrifice through the Lord's Supper. And in the next bit of scripture tomorrow, in the next video, we're going to talk about the proper way to observe the Lord's Supper, and Paul's going to remind them of this. But he's a little upset because they're acting as if they're going to a pagan celebration. A lot of these pagan celebrations, they would go and they would party and they would drink and there would be excess. And so Paul's like, no, you're missing the point of the gospel. The gospel is for everyone. You guys are eating your food while these guys are going hungry. This is not what Christ was about. We are all a part of a family. And so what is Paul saying here? Well, I have one point that we can take away in light of Paul's Gene Wilder freak out on these guys. And it is this, and he's right to freak out. It is this: the church is not a restaurant, it's a health club. I'll say it again. The church is not a restaurant, it's a health club. Verse 20, when you meet together, you are not really interested in the Lord's Supper. For some of you hurry to eat your own meal without sharing with others. As a result, some go hungry while others get drunk. We can't approach church as a place to merely get fed. You're there to get fit. And part of getting fit is worshiping, yes, and serving and being encouraged, but it's also giving, serving others, and encouraging others, building up the body. Don't forsake the gathering together of the brethren. So you get together as iron sharpens iron. You are coming together to basically make your weaknesses ineffective through Christ. And so you shouldn't be walking into church and opening up your menu and looking at the specials. You should be looking for the spatula. Your response to what Christ has done for you should be humility, and there shouldn't be any class divisions, but just one big family. And so next time you go to church, you see that guy over there and he's down and out, or you see that guy over there, maybe nobody wants to sit next to him because he smells. Well, what would Jesus do? Remember the WWJD, braces? Anyway, it was a 90s fad. But honestly, what would Jesus do? Would he keep to himself, be fed, or are you there to get fit? Are you there to go? Could you encourage that man or woman? Could you sit next to them? Could you bless them? Could you take them out to a meal or something like that? And so again, church isn't a restaurant. Church is a health club. And so we're going to read a little bit more about what Paul instructs them to do when they come together, especially pertaining to the Lord's Supper in reverence, in remembrance of Christ's sacrifice. But again, you shouldn't approach church merely to get fed. You should be there to get fit. And so that is what I have for you today. And hopefully, if we do this, we will elicit this response.
You did it! You did it! I knew you would! I just knew you would!